Okay. One Piece chapter 1116, which we're not going to do like the intro moving forward. Got copyright issues with the intro and outro. But dude, first and foremost, I like how Oda had the balls to just go right for it. And he's dropping hints of what's going to be at Laugh Tale. Because now we're getting a clear picture. Laugh Tale, the final island, and the Void Century. Now I'm wondering, is there more to Roger's death? Because that's kind of what he's implying here. Like, I really feel like that's kind of what he's implying, that like Roger wasn't just executed because he was a pirate. They kill pirates all the time. Was killing Roger also one of those situations where they were sending a message to anybody else that would know the information? Because like the world government does not do anything by mistake. And then the other thing, right? The other thing. So this is the blind reaction. So kind of spitballing here before we go into the recap portion. But the other thing kind of grabbed me on this is I also looked at how when Vegapunk was breaking down the information, we see Imu's response and we see Akainu's response. And we get Rayleigh's response, and there's a moment where you get emphasis on Vivi with her missing, and then you see her ancestor, and the panels are close together. In particular, they're close to Imu. I think I see where Oda's cooking this. Like, I see pieces. And, you know, one of the things about paneling in manga is things are not necessarily done by mistake like this. When you have different characters in close proximity to one another and you look at the eyes for Imu, like when Imu's eyes, they're looking like, so I want you to like go on Viz Media's website. This would be the best way to explain it. Go on Viz Media's website or Viz Media, because Shonen Jump app, not Shonen Jump app, but Manga Plus does it vertical. If you look at the pages side by side like you would in an actual magazine where both pages are laid out, or if the manga volume's out right now, look at the manga volume, okay? So when you open it up, you have Imu in the lower right corner, and the eye is looking slanted up, and it's looking slanted up at Vivi's ancestor, okay? The one that was at the center of all the stuff that happened way back when. And then when you continue to just chart going all the way up in that diagonal fashion, in the upper left corner on the next page, you have Vivi, and it says missing, and we know she's not actually missing per se, but just the straight line. There's another connection here, because I've noticed with some of the ways that Oda's paneled stuff before, that's not me reaching into that, because I picked up on that in passing, going back and reread, because I'll reread the series when I get to certain stopping points, and I pay closer attention to things, and that's something that I have noticed there. So just, I challenge you, go back and reread One Piece and look at the paneling, because you'll pick up on small stuff like this. But I digress though. So the other thing before we get into the recap that stood out to me is Oda just dropped the message that I think we all understand, which is the fact that when it comes to the best laid plans, the best inventions that mankind can make, it gets to a point where you have good intentions and then somebody will pervert them. And this lesson is taught in this chapter. That's really one of the cruxes of the chapter, because Vegapunk, he saw a problem. He wanted to make a constantly renewable type of energy, and his heart was in the right place. But because the flame was stolen, much in the same way that like secrets that a scientist makes for their invention get stolen, and it gets passed on and it gets perverted and turned into a weapon, that's what happened here. And what we find out is the mother flame that he created was basically used to activate one of the weapons, one of the ancient weapons. So backing things up, right? So we open up and we have them being told like, hey, you know, the weapons that sunk the world, hey, they're still lurking around out there. People are spitballing, and Vegapunk is doing this monologue and everything. And you have people asking the questions like, well, if this is the case, then how is a war from 800 years ago still ongoing? Imu looks extremely pissed off. People are calling for Vegapunk to explain stuff. You get the snapshot of Alabasta. You see what looks like Pell. You see Igarum in there. And what I like is Vegapunk says, hey, I wanted to make this renewable energy that everyone could benefit from, but it was still incomplete. But I happened to get to my last stage where it was almost ready to be presented. And once that happened, it got stolen. And the fault is entirely with me. And when he says it's entirely with me, at first I'm going, hold on a second. Did he accidentally let it out? And then when you get to the end of the chapter, we find out what he really means by me is like my Vegapunk clone stole it. So I thought that was clever by Oda here. And I like how we get another snapshot over. And this is completely beautiful writing here. I really wanted to know what was going on with the Straw Hats, but Oda is showing us Stussy and that conversation with Edison. That really gets to the heart of just one of the things Oda does a really good job in terms of good writing. So as Edison is having the conversation with Stussy and getting the update on what's going on, you see Stussy struggling. And Kaku, he's been tied up and everything, restrained. And, she's asking like, hey, if I make sure he doesn't go after the Straw Hats, is it okay if I release him? And Edison has a very beautiful set of dialogue I want to read. He says, I get it, Stussy. I'm very sorry for putting you through this. He was a friend, wasn't he? I'm sorry for making you betray that friendship, but you still went and saved us. And I know you wished it could have been true to both, that you could have been true to both. That kind of inner conflict is a calling card for humanity. Follow your heart, Stussy, and do whatever it takes to survive. So that's beautiful because that's at the end of the day what every writer is going for. You're going for, even if it's in a chapter, every chapter in the manga should be treated like a short story that's a part of a bigger story. At the end of the day, what you're trying to answer as a writer is what does it mean to be human? And what we're seeing here, what Stussy is being used to taught us, is one of the things that Oda is telling us is like, hey, live free, follow your heart. And there are times where you're not going to agree with friends. There are times where you might even do things your friends won't agree with. But at the end of the day, you can still make things right depending on whether or not your intentions are good and depending on what the intentions in your heart are. And so I do like that what Oda did in this is, if we were workshopping this, one of the things that the person leading the workshop would say is that he did a good job of having internal conflict and external conflict. Internal being Stussy's twisted loyalties, and external conflict being, do I let Kaku go? Or if I do let him go, will he go after the Straw Hats? Can I stop him? Can I stand up to him? Will he be mad at me? Internal, external are conflicting. So I did like that. And I like how we shift over and he starts explaining that, Lalisa or Lulusa, a powerful light shined and then all of a sudden the kingdom was wiped out. Well, when it led to the earthquakes, I did some investigations and the only thing that could have wiped it out was the Mother Flame. And the only way that it could have been wiped out is if the Mother Flame was used in order to activate one of those ancient weapons. And he apologizes. And man, this is big because, when you bow, it's for sincerity. He bows so hard, he smacks his head on the ground just to show like, hey, I really, really, really hate that I did this. And what I like here, and I don't know if this is intentional, I'm gonna have to read the SBSs, but I don't know, like I got vibes like Albert Einstein when I look at Vegapunk. And, because you got like the hair that I'm assuming is white and he's got the coat and everything. Einstein helped create the nuclear weapon that dropped over in World War II. So I'm kind of wondering, like, is this kind of like a homage to that? Like Einstein regretted creating a weapon that could do that huge weapons of mass destruction effect. And now the Pluton is happening here. And, I'm be curious to see if Oda addressed that part. And what I like is that as he's talking about the ancient weapons, we get the shot of Crocodile. And, with Crocodile, that all goes back to what we saw in Alabasta. So because Crocodile knew all about that. So, it's one of the things where we're seeing that. And then right after we see Crocodile, we see Shirahoshi. And it's making me think like, again, Fishman Island is going to get brought right back into relevancy. It's getting back into relevancy because, like, I don't think just looking at the pattern of the way that Luffy's gone and how he's gone through all these different kingdoms and he just happens to be interacting with the different future leaders of every kingdom, oh, there's something coming. And Luffy's going to be that rallying cry. It's ironic. He's the son of a revolutionary. And the thing about revolutions is, yeah, Dragon's, the face of the revolution right now because he's leading the revolutionary army. But leaders and revolutions, you don't pick your leaders. They just emerge. And Luffy has been emerging this entire time. The world government has realized it. And you can even say that there was foreshadowing because Akainu had a hard-on for him. But Aokiji flat out said, I look at this crew and I see your potential and it scares me. And that makes me, again, go back to the thing with Roger because like Luffy is supposedly following Roger's path in terms of islands he's going to. And it makes me wonder, is something on Laugh Tale something that got Roger killed? The information he got. And Luffy walking this path and making all these connections with all these different people, is that what's going to avoid him getting killed? And is this going to be a situation where this basically breaks out into a much bigger war? I kind of feel like it is. Because at this point, Oda has crossed into the line and he's got Vegapunk spilling a lot of truth about the Void Century. And he's like, even though all my information is incomplete, eventually we are going to find out the truth. And here's the crazy thing. The King of the Pirates crew, they learned something. The secrets are in their hands. And as that goes on, that's when York finally figures out like, okay, so he knew that I got my hands on the Mother Flame, that I betrayed him. And that's where she goes out and she reaches to the 5 elders and she's like, look, I know where it is. The transponder snail, he wouldn't have left it in plain sight, is under the protection of the Iron Giant. So now that Iron Giant comes back into play, and that Iron Giant was a Chekhov's gun the entire time. And again, a Chekhov's gun, if you're from like the Naruto Explained channel, you're well aware. I've used that term a lot. But Chekhov's gun is like you implement something into the story, and like if there's a gun on the table, it has to be fired off at least once. It can't just sit there and never be used. And it's the same thing here. That Iron Giant couldn't just be for decorations or to light up and etc. Now we know it served a much bigger purpose. So I like that. I like that. Like this is gonna make me want to go back and reread Egghead once I finish the arc. I'm gonna go ahead and finish it because the anime is getting close to where I am, which is super embarrassing, by the way, because I've been taking my time reading One Piece, but I didn't think that the anime would catch up to me. Now, the next thing is that after he reveals, they're like, hey man, the King of the Pirates crew, they got the information. You see Shaki and you see Rayleigh, and Rayleigh's drunk himself. And it's like, we know Rayleigh drinks, but the fact that like he's kind of passing out drunk and they're listening to the transmission makes me wonder, did he start drinking and drink this much right when he heard it? What did they find? And I like how the last thing that he says in the chapter is like, hey, don't rob all the youngins of their fun, right, Roger? And now, again, him training Luffy is starting to make a lot more sense, man. So this is going to be my chapter question to you guys, since you guys are further ahead of me right now, which is, how do you feel about the fact that Vegapunk has left everything out? And this is a serious question. So I'm 50-50 on it, because I do feel like you do need to give the information. But with something like this, where all the information isn't complete, there are times where when you release too much information all at once, people can get overload and they refuse to accept it. Or you release information that's incomplete, and then people begin to question whether or not you are a credible source. And then the other thing is it's a little dangerous to release incomplete information, even though you're being transparent that like, hey, some stuff in this may not be right, or it may change when you get more context. But it's one of those things, when you instill fear into people, there's no bottling it back up. It's almost like he took the progressive approach, and I'm wondering if maybe the more conservative approach might have been better. So I am curious to read you guys' comments on that. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.